Thus, well, one has to become a seller and learn how to make things oneself. You know, the undergarments, and now for the undergarments, not bother making it yourself. The best is to wear a union suit, or combination as the British call them. Now, since they're more popular in the United States of America, those latter are more easily available in the just named country. Now, these are not the original, but date from in between the 1920s and 1950s. I would say mostly from the 40s onwards, or at least 30s onwards for bigger than I persons. And they shall be identical in the sense that the fabric, even if it be 100% cotton or wool or a mixture of both, shall not be very knitted in the same pattern, or the fabric have not been even initially yarned into the same mode. But I think that does not really matter for union suit, which is really the undermost layer that nobody sees, unlike the socks and shirt, which also are undergarments, but which are second layer undergarments and thus are actually seen. Now, if one desires to be more British and to some degree more accurate, there are a lot of long under trousers, separate pieces, available still in Great Britain. But if one is very tall, it shall be harder to find a piece. And also the undershirt shall have to be made, because the only ones I found from the very early 1900s were almost too small for me, and are very rare. And usually those were actually American. Because again, more people in America, and more things have survived. The sock should not be found at all. So either get diabetic people's sock, like I do, or if you want more accuracy, manage to find a yarn which is accurate, and then make socks out of it. If you are bound to make an entire sort, making socks or units will be easy. Now, why units with that pros and cons? The unit suit is more practical because it doesn't add that extra tight waistband here below the trousers. And also, since it is so difficult to starch a shirt, you will only do it once a while, because if you get passionate by making clothing, and like Tom Van Head Hofstede, you have to be passionate by that, or we shall soon give up. So let us once say that you are still passionate by actually learning and thus making clothing, which will be a lifetime thing and a lifetime passion. I've been starching the bloody shirt and making sure it is all clean before, and that's removing the old starch, and then starching and then ironing and making the starch. The whole process takes at least 3 hours. I would say no. 2 hours and a half, yeah, at least 3 hours and a half, 4 hours. So if on top of that you make your own clothing and also have a life on the side and eventually a job, you shall not have time to do it more than once a month. And so one shall think how to keep the shirt up, because it was a minimum long there, so even if one makes one's own shirt, it shall still have to be minimum long. It shall touch the groin outlet, because as per the undertrousers back then, it have to reach above the shirt, and thus the shirt would touch the groin outlet, or at least the peanuts. And even if one only goes to defecate once a day, and thus manages to do it just before one takes a bath, and also the scrub in one's between butt cheeks, shall be clean for that, but not for the urine. For men, they get to the toilet a lot, and the penis and it shall not be clean for that. So the shirt then has to be like what I do, because I wear under trousers. I have to, because I live in Dubai, and it's will be too warm, so I have to sort of take the shirt, wrap it up. But if I was to be living in France, I would have union suits, which are more practical, because then the union suit is the undermost layer, and is the one to take all, excrements or urine stains. And so then the shirt may be as long as one desires, without the shirt being disgusting, with urine and excrement stains. And the union suit is very easily washable and is not meant to be starched or ironed at all. Indeed, it would completely damage it since it is a knitted fabric. Do not iron it even, let alone starch it. And by the by, if something can't be ironed, it can't be starched, but there's no point starching without ironing afterwards. It would simply make the garment even worse. So, that's the reason for which the union suit is much better. Now, the impracticality of the union suit, even for a cold weather country like England, as I thought of it yesterday, is that usually let us say that the under part wears out first, which is very impractical for the topmost layer may still be fine, only require one patch, but then the all top part, bottom part is entirely ruined. So what to do? But if one is bound to make an entire suit and do these things in one's entire life and make the entire, way more complex clothing, not only may one make the entire suit, but even whichever one has made the union suit, or whether they purchased a vintage piece, it shall be easy to even to some degrees, for example, it once that the top part is still alright after a year or 2 years wear, to cut off the bottom part, get rid of that, and refabricate the bottom part to sew onto, or at least keep the top part as an undershirt, or pyjama shirt or whatever. But if one thinks a union suit is too impractical because one makes it warm quickly and thus to have the option to have because especially with a union suit, if the bottom part, especially for England, since for the bottom only the trousers are worn, it may require to be warm, but not as warm on top. So unless one desires to make a two-fabric union suit in the sense that, for example, the top would, the sleeves of the top would only be knitted cotton, even if warm cotton, and then the bottom would be a warm wool, one could, but then washing it would be difficult because the cotton would after one wear, and especially after one wear per month, I mean as in you wash it well for 24 hours max, pull it to be washed, and when do not get more than 4 on the time. When it's 3 a day, you do a wash up. But one should notice that after a month, the bottom part, first of all, it has to be washed in the wool cycle of the washing machine, which shall not suffice to remove dirt from the top, but shall suffice for the bottom. But then if once a month one desires the top to look clean properly once again, it has to go at least 40 degrees in the washing machine at the cotton cycle, which will damage the bottom part. So then one really desires to have a separate piece, and so one may also choose between, for example, the actual December months of England, when one would wear a wool undershirt, and then for for example, for October, November, and then April, May, and June, decide to wear a cotton undershirt, but keep the same under trousers, because in England, or even in France, whatever, wool may suffice, maybe what would be the minimum required to keep the legs warm, and then it could still be well even in spring. So one may desire to have a separate undertrouser. Now the problem are many. First of all, the undershirt shall want to untuck itself. So it adds that on top of the problem of the untucking of the actual shirt. And most of all, I think it is uncomfortable having that extra waistband. So what people did, they had brace tabs. The brace tabs are those it's like, imagine these are the under trousers, have those brace loops, and the tabs of the braces pass through them before buttoning to the trousers, because obviously in such a case, as per the standards then, the shirt would tuck into the under trousers and the trousers were all over those. But the braces are very impractical, because obviously the under trousers want to ride down, and so they pull the braces and pull the under trousers. You really need an extra pair of braces, or to tighten them super tight, which will be extremely uncomfortable, because they will be high-waisted and almost impossible to bear, or to tighten them a bit and not mind them falling a bit down, which makes them uncomfortable and have the feeling of a darken to one's trousers. So really the only solution I find is to have an extra pair of braces, only for those under trousers, and also to have, if you are making it all soft, then only sew 4 buttons, which shall be enough for under trousers, or even 3. The problem of sewing 3 is that if you desire to have a light bag and those things at the back, or more like a British tab with buttons in order to decrease the because it's not because one is making one style, but one does not desire to have it last